This is a recording recovered from the personal device of the subject, catalogued under case file 09327A. The individual is not under formal investigation at the moment, though this recording was submitted voluntarily to law enforcement. The audio has been preserved in its original form. Listener discretion is advised.
She laughed like the world owed her something. Name's Elias, 42. Used to be a copywriter. I guess none of that matters now. That glass was always too delicate. I always thought it would break on its own someday. But that night, it trembled in her hand. And it wasn't fear. No. It was excess. Excess confidence. Excess alcohol. Excess laughter. She always laughed more than necessary. But that night, she went too far. I watched the base of the glass gently tap against the table, as if trying to dance on its own. The wine swirled like it was nervous too, and she didn't even notice. Said it was just because dinner turned out great. I hadn't cooked. She knew, but she pretended. That laugh. It wasn't just happiness. It was provocation. A way of reminding me that she was in control of everything, even the silence. I stared at her fingers, as if they belonged to someone else's body. Her pinky nail was chipped. A small, silly thing. But it made me angry, because she had always been a perfectionist. Always. And that night, it was like she wanted me to notice the flaws. As if saying, look how I don't care anymore. I cared, and that burned. The glass trembled, and I knew it was a warning. But I didn't listen. I just watched. Sitting there, hands under the table, feeling my own sweat soaking into the back of the chair. The joke wasn't even funny. One of those you hear at a family lunch, and laugh out of politeness. But she repeated it 3 times, and laughed again, and again, always looking at me, like she was searching for a reaction. I tried to smile the first time. The second, I shook my head. By the third, I just sighed. She noticed, of course she did, and laughed louder, as if she had one, as if the night was hers, and I was just there by accident. Maybe I was. Maybe I'd been in the background for a long time. She knew the effect of that laugh. She knew exactly where to aim, and she aimed at me, not with harsh words or fights. With this kind of thing. A repeated joke. Laughter out of place. A look that didn't hide anything. She laughed to make me feel small, and I did. Every time. But that night, I felt it differently. Like it was the last time. There was something in her tone. Something that cut. Like a dull knife. Scraping instead of slicing. Made me want to cover my ears. But I stayed there. Still. Listening. Like it was my duty. Like I had to endure it. I'd known that laugh since the beginning. At first, it was beautiful. Light. Now it hurt. It wasn't the volume. It was the intention. It was what came behind it. As if every laugh said, look what you've become. And I heard it, in every syllable. She knew how to laugh like no one else. And she used that, as a weapon. And that night, I had no shield. Nothing I said could change the rhythm of it. I turned into wine. She turned into laughter. And there was no balance left. Just the sound echoing inside my head. Cutting, burning, shrinking me. It was her favorite label. A cheap Chilean red, but full-bodied. There was always a bottle in the house. And I knew. I knew if I left it open, she wouldn't resist. And that's what I did. Uncorked it before dinner. Let it breathe. She walked in and smelled it in the air. Smiled. Went straight for the glass. I watched everything like observing an experiment. Every move. Every expression. She never said no to red. Especially on an ordinary day. No excuse needed. I poured without asking. And she accepted. Like it was natural. Like it was affection. But it wasn't. Neither of us believed in that anymore. It was routine. A game. I left the bottle open because I wanted her to surrender. Not to me. To the wine. To the situation. I just wanted her to stop laughing. Even if only for a few minutes. And it worked. For a while, it was a slip. Hers. She was always clumsy. Laughed too hard. Knocked her elbow against the glass. The wine flew. Landed on the white tablecloth like a crime scene. A vivid red stain. Absurd. She didn't care. Laughed more. Said the wine was too good. I just stared at the spreading stain. The fabric absorbing it. Accepting. I didn't accept. It bothered me more than it should. The tablecloth was a gift from my mother. She knew that, but acted like she didn't remember. Or she remembered and didn't care. The stain stayed there all night. And so did I, sitting silent. Thinking about how some things don't come out with soap, not with hot water. Some things cling and stay. When she saw the open bottle, she gave me a crooked look, curious, like asking, trying again. I just smiled. She took it as kindness, maybe even hope, and that gave her more power. She grabbed the glass with that same confidence as always, thanked me like I'd done something sweet. But it wasn't that. I wasn't trying to please. I was observing, watching how far she'd go, how far she could push before losing balance. She thought she was winning, thought the wine was a peace offering. It wasn't. It was bait, and she bit, with joy, with laughter, with that gleam in her eyes she used when she thought she was in control. She never knew that night, I'd already decided everything. I knew she'd go upstairs. She always did after dinner, when the wine had hit. Took off her shoes on the stairs, stumbled laughing, complained about the lights. A ritual, predictable. That night, I followed. Didn't say a word, just followed. She didn't turn, didn't need to. She knew I was right behind. And when she reached the second step, her heel wobbled, just a little, enough to jolt me. My instinct was to grab the railing hard, so hard I felt the metal dig into my palm. My heart pounded, but I didn't reach for her, didn't touch her. Just clung to that cold bar, like it was the only real thing left. Like I needed to hold on to it to stop myself from doing something, or from doing more than I should. The railing was my anchor, and in that moment, I needed one. She didn't notice, or pretended not to. Kept climbing, but the wobble stayed with me, burned into me. A second stretched like an elastic band ready to snap. I could have done something, but I didn't. I just gripped the metal and counted to 5, then kept following. That stupid rug, always too small for the landing, always crooked. We'd both slipped on it before. She hated it, said one day it would make us fall. Never threw it out. That night, it was turned in a strange way. I saw it before her, clearly, but said nothing, did nothing, just watched. I don't know if it was omission or decision. I could have warned her, could have nudged it straight with my foot, but I stood still, waiting. She got there, her heel still shaky, and stepped with her full weight right on the crease. Her foot twisted, just a bit, but enough. She lost balance, tried to catch herself, didn't make it. It was all too fast and, somehow, impossibly slow. Maybe she could have steadied herself if I'd said something, a careful, anything. But I didn't. I wanted to see. Wanted to know what would happen. The rug was crooked, and I didn't warn her, because in that moment, it made sense. Twisted maybe, but it made sense. It was a reflex, a tiny gesture, but it happened. She turned her head, not her whole body, just her head, looking for something behind her. Support, a glance, a lifeline, and she saw me, standing still. 2 steps down, arms slack, no hurry, no reaction. Her eyes went right through me, not fear, but doubt, like they said, you knew. And I did. That froze me, not anger, not panic, realization, and she saw it in my eyes. The silence between us screamed louder than any fall, and then she fell. There was no scream, no drama, just the sound of her body hitting the floor, and that look stuck to me until the very last second. A look that still visits me, sometimes, that appears in the mirror, when I least expect, as if still asking, why? And I have no answer. I never did. Continued in next message. Você disse. I asked, complete, o ChatGPT disse. That glass was always too delicate. I always thought it would shatter on its own someday. But that night, it trembled, in her hand. And it wasn't fear. No, it was excess. Excess confidence, excess alcohol, excess laughter. She always laughed more than necessary. But that night, she went too far. I watched the base of the glass gently tap the table, as if trying to dance on its own. The wine swirled like it was nervous too, and she didn't even notice. She said it was just because dinner turned out great. I hadn't cooked. She knew. But she pretended. That laugh. It wasn't just happiness. It was provocation. A reminder that she was in control. Of everything. Even the silence. I stared at her fingers, as though they belonged to someone else's body. Her pinky nail was chipped. A small, silly thing, but it made me angry. She had always been a perfectionist. Always. And that night, it was as if she wanted me to notice the flaws, as though to say, look how little I care. Now I cared. And that burned. The glass trembled, and I knew it was a warning. But I didn't listen. I just watched. Sitting there, hands under the table, feeling my own sweat soak into the chair's backrest. The joke wasn't even funny. One of those you hear at a family lunch and laugh at out of politeness. But she repeated it 3 times and laughed again and again, always looking at me as if gauging my reaction. I tried to smile the first time. The second time, I shook my head. The third time, I just sighed. She noticed, of course she did. And she laughed louder, as if she'd won. As if that night was hers, and I was merely a bystander. Maybe I was. Maybe I'd been in the background for a long while. She knew just how her laughter affected me, knew exactly where to aim. And she aimed at me not with harsh words, but with small humiliations. A repeated joke. A laughter ill-timed. A look that hid nothing. She used her laughter as a weapon to make me feel small, and I did every time. But that night, I felt it differently, like the last time. There was something in her tone, something sharp, like a blunt knife, gouging instead of slicing. It made me want to cover my ears, but I stayed put, listening as though it were my duty. I had known that laugh from the start. At first it was beautiful, light. Now it hurt. It wasn't volume, it was intent. It was what lay behind each chuckle, as if each one whispered, "Look at what you've become." And I heard it, in every syllable. She knew how to laugh better than anyone, and she used it as a weapon. And that night, I had no shield. Nothing I could say would change its rhythm. I turned into wine, and she turned into laughter. There was no balance, only the echo in my head, cutting, burning, shrinking me. It was her favorite label, a cheap Chilean red, full body. There was always a bottle at home, and I knew, if I left it open, she wouldn't resist. So I uncorked it before dinner, let it breathe. She walked in, smelled it, smiled, and went straight for the glass. I watched every movement like an experiment, every gesture, every expression. She never refused red, especially on an ordinary day. No excuse needed. I poured without asking, and she took it like it was natural, like it was affection. But neither of us believed in that anymore. It was routine, a game. I left the bottle open because I wanted her to lose herself, not in me, but in the wine, in the situation. I just wanted her to stop laughing, even for a few minutes. And it worked temporarily. Then came the slip. She was always clumsy, laughed too hard, bumped her elbow on the glass. The wine flew, spattered on the white tablecloth, like a crime scene, a vivid red stain. Absurd. She laughed more and blamed the wine. I just stared at the stain spread, at the fabric soaking it up. I didn't accept it. It annoyed me more than it should. That tablecloth was a gift from my mother. She knew it. But she feigned ignorance. Or she remembered, and didn't care. The stain stayed all night, and so did I, sitting, silent, thinking about how some things don't wash out with soap or hot water. Some things stick. When she saw the open bottle, she shot me a crooked look, curious, trying again. I only smiled. She took it as kindness or hope, and that gave her more power. She picked up the glass with her usual confidence and thanked me as if I'd done something sweet. But it wasn't sweetness. I wasn't trying to please. I was observing, watching how far she'd go, how far she could push before losing balance. She thought she was winning, thought the wine was a peace offering. It wasn't, it was bait. And she bit, laughing, eyes gleaming with control. She never knew that night, I had already decided everything. I knew she'd head upstairs, as always after dinner. When the wine kicked in, shoes off mid-stair, stumbling laughter, complaining about the lights ritual, predictable. That night, I followed silently. She didn't turn, I didn't speak, I just followed. And on the second step, her heel wobbled, just slightly, but enough to jolt me to life. My instinct was to grip the railing so tightly, the metal dug into my palm. My heart hammered. But I didn't reach for her. I clung to the cold steel bar, as if it were the only real thing, my anchor. In that moment, I needed it to stop myself from acting or from doing more than I should have. She didn't notice or pretended not to and continued climbing. But that wobble branded itself into me. A split second stretched like a taut wire. That stupid rug twisted beneath her foot. Too small for the landing, always crooked. We'd slipped on it before. She hated it, said it would be our downfall, yet never discarded it. That night, it lay turned askew. I saw it before she did, clearly, but said nothing, did nothing, just watched. I can't say if it was omission or calculated choice. I could have warned, nudged it straight, but I stood still, waited. She reached the landing, hill still shaky, and stepped fully onto the crease. Her foot turned just a hair but enough. She lost her balance, tried to catch herself, but time slowed as she fell. Maybe a word of caution, careful, would have saved her. But I said nothing. I wanted to see. I wanted to know what would happen if I let it play out. And it did. She turned her head, not her body, just her eyes looking down, seeking support, pleading. And she met mine frozen, 2 steps below, arms at my sides, no movement, not panic, not anger, just realization. I knew. She knew I knew. That look reached me at the very last moment. You knew. And then she fell. No scream. No dramatic crash. Just the sound of her body hitting the floor. And that look locked onto me until the last breath. A look that still visits me in mirrors, in dreams, whispering why. And I have no answer. Never did. It wasn't like in the movies. No slow motion fractures or shattered furniture. Just a sharp crack bone on wood. Then silence. No moan, no sigh. Nothing but the echo of impact lingering in the empty house. The wine still stained the tablecloth. The stair light flickered as always. Everything went on as if unchanged except for her. I didn't rush down. I didn't cry out. I lingered at the top of the stairs for long seconds, observing her form. Legs splayed, left arm twisted, hair fallen over her face. One heel still in its shoe, the other foot bare. The rug lay still motionless, innocent. I knew what had moved and what I hadn't. What I chose to leave alone. When I finally moved, it was slow, not from fear or guilt, but from detachment. As though I were someone else confronting a crime scene. Each stair I descended grew colder. Shadows stretched oddly. The scent of wine hung in the air. She lay unmoving. Reaching the bottom, I still didn't touch her. I knelt slowly, hand hovering over her shoulder, reluctant to confirm reality, fearful that contact would seal it forever. I wanted that moment to stretch, to be suspended, the last mercy I could grant myself. She drank more than she should have. I said the first words out of my mouth before any question came, before anyone could look at me and ask how it happened. I spoke in a neutral tone, as if commenting on traffic or weather. But it was a shield, a reason to accept a simple accident rather than the version none dared voice, including me. They nodded. Of course, she had a reputation, drinks too much, laughs too loud, loses her balance. It fit, convenient, and I knew it. So I said it. Because she drank too much was a tidy explanation. The world loves tidy explanations. Before the paramedics arrived, before the police came to the door, I straightened the table, adjusted the bottle so the wine level looked right, aligned the 2 glasses, one smeared with lipstick, left the dinner plates in place. Ordinary, unremarkable. A scene crafted for an accident. I'd been a copywriter. I knew how to shape a narrative. I staged the scene without hesitation. I called it in. My wife fell down the stairs. I think she hit her head. Yes, she's breathing but unconscious. Every word rehearsed, every detail measured. Name, address, time of fall. I spoke with precise calm, a controlled tone. The automated questions met with prompt answers. My voice never trembled. After the call, I stared at my phone, its screen dark, my reflection clear. I thought, this will work. Because I understood how people listen to what they want to hear. I gave them a story they'd accept. An accident, nothing more. Domestic accident. The coroner said flat, impersonal, like describing a wet floor. Those words cut through me, cleanly. A fatal misstep, nothing more. I almost thanked him for providing a frame to hang the ruins of my life. From that moment on, domestic accident became my refrain. 2 neighbors, family, colleagues, no questions. The state had called it so, that was enough. But then came the bruise. A faint purpling on her wrist, delicate as a belt's imprint. No one else noticed it, the medics, the police, the coroner, but I did. I knew its shape because it was from my hand, a reflexive clutch at her wrist as she stumbled. 1 second just enough. And it remained unnoticed, a secret relief. At the funeral, people praised me. You were so strong. She was lucky to have you. They wept and embraced me. I nodded silently. Nobody suspected the truth. Nobody knew what really happened. And that became my freedom. I played the grieving widower perfectly. Quiet, respectful, subdued. I wore the right clothes, said the right words. They all fell into line, offering me the silence I craved. That silence buried more than hurt, buried me too. The next day, I cleaned every trace, every stair, every drip, every footprint. I got down on my knees and scrubbed until my hands bled. I believed the polish could erase more than wood could forgive, but it didn't. Now I avoid looking at the railing cold iron where my fingers dug in that night. I stare at the floor instead, never to the side, fearing the memory of my grip white-knuckled, desperate. There's one step the third from the top that used to creak. She always said it would be our downfall. That night, it spoke first. A sharp groan under her weight. I ignored it. Now, even after replacing the wood, I still hear it in my mind. A phantom creak, a spectral warning. People call it trauma, imagination, guilt, maybe. But I hear it a single creak, reverberating through silence, summoning the past. No one else hears it, yet I do, day and night. Sometimes, in the dark, I think I hear her voice, a soft whisper, gentle, Elias, once just once, like she's asking me to look back, to not have let her fall. I try to ignore it, but her voice mingles with the sound of heels, laughter, the crooked rug, the wine. She calls as if still falling, suspended forever, and I almost answer. I keep the same wine, same label, same scent out of habit or penance. I uncork it carefully, let it breathe, pour into the fragile glass she once held. I sit in the same chair, at the same corner of the table. The tablecloth is now dark strategic for hiding stains, whether of wine or memory. I drink alone, no clinking of glasses, no shared laughter. One glass, a solitary toast, to absence. The wine slides down, but there's no warmth, no lightheadedness, just liquid darkness. I've tried to quit, tried different vintages. Nothing changes. It's not about the wine, it's the ritual, repeating it so I won't forget, keeping alive an absence that refuses to die. So I toast, as if it were my last time always, as if it were my last. I never threw away her broken heel, either. It sits wrapped in a dark cloth at the back of a drawer, proof of what happened, not legally, but intimately. I open the drawer sometimes, just to see it's there, a secret I still guard. I touch it, never. Its shape is enough to confirm reality. She fell, and I watched. I've thought of tossing it in the river, burning it, anything to rid myself of the past. But I can't. If the heel vanished, maybe the rest would too. And a part of me wants to remember. Laughter no longer lives here, not hers, not mine. The sounds have changed. Only the ticking clock, the faint clink of my glass. Footsteps in the hallway, and sometimes the creaking step that should have warned us. Visits have ceased. Dinners are over. Even the neighbors' hellos have faded. The house carries a weight others sense but can't name. I don't mind. I no longer seek company, just exist, moving room to room, repeating gestures and silent sips. Sometimes I remember that night, her bright laughter, her radiant joy. I wonder if it would have been better that she remained laughing, because now there's no sound but memory, and memory does not laugh. It repeats and repeats and repeats.